batendo um papo. Então, a próxima, a caixa Portugal, eu imagino que está chegando na casa de vocês. Quem ainda não chegou está a caminho. A gente ainda tem umas 3 caixas lá paradas, então até vou falar com o pessoal dos próximos grupos. Já estou trabalhando e já estou recebendo a amostra da próxima caixa. Eu acho que Espanha é um bom tema para a gente começar a migrar, porque a gente consegue falar sobre clima, sobre diversidade, sobre uvas. E aí acho que Espanha é importante a gente falar sobre estilos, regionalidade, tipicidade. Acho que isso é um ponto importante. Então é para esse caminho que eu vou seguir. A gente vai falar de coisas super tradicionais de Espanha. Eu acho que benchmark é benchmark, clássicos são clássicos. Diferentemente de América do Sul. E então eu imagino que em uma semana e meia a gente já deve ter aí, já devo estar com essa seleção pronta, aí é só validar com fornecedores. Aqui leva pelo menos uma semana e meia do meu lado no processo de seleção, logo mais a gente tem. E aí acho que é um ponto importante, como esse é um grupo voltado para participantes do clube de degustação, do Diploma, aqueles que não adquiriram nenhuma das caixas nem América do Sul, nem Portugal, a gente provavelmente vai delicadamente, carinhosamente tirá-los do grupo e muito em breve, quando eles adquirirem a próxima caixa, eles voltam para o grupo. No hard feelings, né? Isso não quer dizer que se você não comprou, você está fora, mas eu acho que quem já está há muito tempo sem participar, acho que não faz sentido. Então, se de repente você pular a próxima caixa Espanha, não quer dizer que a gente vai te tirar, mas se você ficar muito tempo sem participar, acho que faz sentido você não participar mais desse grupo, ok? Então, mudando agora para o inglês. Welcome, good evening, everyone. I think we are all here. We are in 9 participants, so it's likely that we won't be having any new attendant, but I'm looking at all the participants. So, if anyone pops in, I let them in. And tonight we have our last two wines, 2 red wines, which is wine 5 and wine 6 of our South American box. So as I mentioned previously, I decided to go away from the traditional grape varieties, which are widely planted in South America, such as Cabernet Sauvignon, such as Chardonnay, such as Carmenère, and even Syrah. Those are grape varieties that we know what they taste like. But I think that when we are talking about South America, there is another face of South America that we should be familiarized with. And this is related to traditional winemaking, traditional grape varieties, not international. I mean, they are international, but they're not under the spotlight. And I think it's important for us to be familiarized with. And we have seen, if you could help me, I think we have seen Semillon, we have seen a blended white wine of non-traditional traditional grape varieties such as Pedro Jimenez and so on. And we have seen uncommon red grape varieties, but which are widely planted, such as Pais, for example, which is important grape variety, but also the style is quite popular as well. And tonight we have 2 deep red wines. So let's think of how to identify those 2 wines. And I think one of them has a logical way of maybe guessing, a logical way of guessing. And for you to be able to guess, you need to understand why the wine was made that way. Let's put it this way. And let's start with the first wine, the first red wine. Who can help me with this wine?
Me, Thiago.
Yeah, go on.
Thiago, for me, it's deep ruby, almost purple. There's some purple in it. Aromas of medium plus intensity. It's fruit forward, but there is a tweak here. I think there's maybe some bubble gum, some. I think that this wine was made with carbonic maceration. That's why this candy, I see some candy aromas here. There's a lot of candy for me, tutti frutti, that kind of stuff, and a lot of red fruits. But there is also some black fruit like blackberries and black currant. I think it's really fruit forward. I think it's a young wine. It doesn't have complexity at all, and this is a clear defined style for me.
Good. Who else would you like to share your notes, your visual and aromas on the nose? Who else?
It also has some different aromas like mint, some green tea, some dry herb, some sages, a little bit. It has a lot of fruit, but has also some herby aspects also.
Yeah, I agree. So would you guys
Some
say that
minerality?
this is a youthful aroma? It's a youthful
Yes.
aromatic characteristics?
No, because it looks like some dried herbs.
Some dry herbs as well as, okay.
Yeah.
I also felt some minerality.
Minerality. Such as like white, like stones, like
Stones.
okay. Good. And how about the palate? How do you guys see the palate of this wine? I mean, Cecilia, have you tasted the wine? I don't know why, but you just pop up in my screen. So have you tasted the wine?
I did. I tasted it while it was still warm, and now it's kind of fresher. So, okay, it's a dry wine. It's a medium plus intensity, acidity. Tannins are medium level. They're soft. Medium alcohol, medium body. On the palate, the flavor intensity is not as strong as on the nose. So I think it's a little bit less than, it would be still like a medium intensity for me, maybe medium plus medium intensity. The flavor characteristics kind of confirmed the nose, although the nose is really explosive with lots of, for me, I had red plum, red cherry, raspberry, strawberry, and but ripe flavors over there. It confirms on the palate. The texture, I don't know if it went from I don't know if they did some micro-oxygenation or something, because it's really soft and it's not, it is a very simple wine. I think it's something kind of almost inexpensive, $5 to, I don't know, $7 or something like that. But there was some important process here. I'm not really sure about that, but anyway. Quality assessment, I think it's a good, simple wine. Lacks complexity, that's for sure. It's a fruit bomb, but that's it.
What do you mean by complexity?
More, okay, well, I agree. If I said like 4 or 5 flavors and I said that it lacks complexity, I just, okay. Maybe it's like me again, not liking the wine. It's not my thing. And then I get all mixed up. I still think it's simple. Maybe it's not short, it's a medium finish, but doesn't stay there. Doesn't give us that much.
Are you expecting to be a wine like this to be complex?
No.
And are all the wines meant to be complex?
No.
So when you say it's not complex, you're saying in a negative way. You're putting it in a negative way, and you should find a positive way of saying it's a simple good wine, or it's a simple entry-level quality wine. So it's important for you to communicate in a way that other people, the examiner, can comprehend what you're saying. And it's very, very important for you to do exactly what Bruno did. Bruno was able to capture the aromas and say, you know what, that leads me to carbonic maceration because of this, and that. So by listening to what you're saying, you should be able to come up with a conclusion that you can convince an examiner that you know what you're talking about, as opposed to say, like a wild guess, like it's not this, but it's not that, but it can be this, or could, you should be able to wrap it up in a way that you say, you know what, it's a simple wine, it's fruit driven, it's quite kind of soft tannins, but at the same time it's quite short finish, like a not complex short finish, easy drinking, food driven, made for early consumption. So you should be able to wrap it up in a way that the examiner knows that you understand about the wine, as opposed to say, oh, it's not this, it's not that, it's not. So you're guessing, and you shouldn't guess. You should, even though you may be wrong, you should be able to say, you know what, the wine is this because of that. You know what I mean?
And it's interesting because even being a young wine, it's very soft, very creamy. I was going to ask you, do you think this is from malolactic?
Yeah. So should we invite the winemaker to lead us through the winemaking process of this wine? So maybe she can answer some of the questions, the doubts that we have. Do you have any winemaker here?
Where is Eloise?
Hello, there you are. There you are, winemaker. So
you're so predictable, Thiago. It's always me. You should start picking someone else and asking me to describe the wine.
So what do you think about this wine?
About the way it was made?
The way it was made, the aromas, the flavors, the everything.
I think so. It's well-balanced wine, made for early consumption, fruity style. It delivers a lot, because I think it's a entry-level wine, but well-made, really well-made. You have a good balance between alcohol, body, and acidity. It makes it fresh. Sometimes these tutti frutti aromas, these gooseberry aromas, can be quite dull. But I think it feels fresh in the mouth. It's not overripe fruit. So, but it's really ripe. I think it's from a variety that doesn't have that much tannins. I think the aspects of body and smoothness or lightness of tannins is due to the variety.
Why would you say that? How can you extract less tannins? So
yes, you can. You can. And you can extract less tannins, even extracting a lot of fruity aromas.
How do you do that?
Low temperature fermentation, for once.
That's one way.
You can also use carbonic maceration.
Sure.
And
when would you use a carbonic maceration? So you're walking through the vineyards, it's harvest time, and when would you say, those grapes are going for carbonic maceration? When would you do that?
I think you have to have very healthy grapes. Healthy grapes, and it depends if it's a grape that would deliver a lot of fruit. And I think it depends mostly on it.
So what are you planting right now?
Style.
What are you planting right now for red grape varieties?
Pinot Noir, Meunier, Sauvignon, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Merlot.
Sure, right. So if you have a Cabernet Sauvignon that it's a bit rustic, I mean, the tannins are not quite round. You do have good bricks, good phenolic concentration, but the tannins are still very hard. You have two options. Try to do some micro-oxygenation. Try to blend in with Merlot, because on its own, the wine is going to be quite thin, quite rustic, and quite big. And you could also do a lot of malolactic, and also try to do a lot of fining to remove that tannins. But again, the more that you work with the wine, the more difficulties you have to control the final result.
Tiny barrels also.
Yeah, but if you don't have much of fruit,
micro-oxygenation.
Yeah. So what's the impact if you get that Cabernet Sauvignon and make a carbonic maceration? What's the end result?
That would be interesting. I don't think I ever tried Cabernet Sauvignon with carbonic maceration or semi-carbonic maceration.
Okay.
But I think you would end up having enough tannins and rounder wine. Like this wine is a wine that somebody said, I think it was Gabriel, mentioned it to be creamy. I wouldn't say creamy because creamy for me is related to the lease process.
Yeah.
But I think it would suggest it could have. Let me put it in another way. But it's this roundness comes from, I guess, micro-oxygenation and some carbonic maceration.
Okay. Carbonic maceration, where is it used? Who can help me here?
In the south of Rome.
Yeah, usually you do in Beaujolais, which is north of Rome.
Yeah,
but
sorry,
you also,
yes.
yeah, but you also do throughout the Rhone. You do throughout Rhone. You do everywhere in Rhone. And which level do you do it?
Entry level.
Entry level, what's the appellation?
Village.
Côte du Rhône. Yeah.
Côte
Any
du
Côte du Rhône, Côte du Rhône Village, they do it Beaujolais. Okay. So let's recap a little bit. Why do they use carbonic maceration for the Beaujolais Village, for the Beaujolais, and why would they use for the Côte du Rhône appellation? What's the aim?
I think it's for early consumption.
Early consumption.
And for summer days, still maybe for young people.
How expensive is an entry-level a Beaujolais AOC and a Côte du Rhône? How expensive are those wines?
Inexpensive.
I think the mesh cheaper. The mesh cheaper to plant.
So it's inexpensive wine. Why would you make an inexpensive wine if you can make a very good wine, expensive wine that you can make more money?
If you don't have the best, it's not the best grapes that you do this.
So if you don't have quality grapes, you end up making an entry-level wine. But how do you make an entry-level inexpensive wine attractive?
You can do carbonic maceration.
And how does carbonic maceration makes an entry-level wine attractive?
Fruity flavors.
Easy
Easy
drinking.
drinking.
Put
Yeah, easy
forward.
drinking.
So you get this interesting nose that seduct you at the very beginning. You'll go like, interesting, and then you go and drink it, right? And then you go like, wow, for €3, you know, you can't get wrong. You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
So we are talking about grapes that they have a lot of tannins, not much of phenolic. You can age them in barrels, but the end result are wines that have a lot of tannins, high acidity, but not oak flavor, but not bone, not flesh, not flavors and aromas, because these are high production grapes. So you can't make an interesting wine. And usually those tannins are quite rustic. So it's a way of getting low quality level grapes that have rustic tannins into a sort of fruity forward and low tannin perception. Does it make sense here?
Yeah.
So it was an interesting call from Bruno, because I do get this deep ruby color. It does show some youthfulness from this sort of purpleness kind of roux that we get from the wine, but it only
Thiago,
says to me the image. Oh, hi.
When are we gonna use deep? When you can't see through the wine? Do we use the finger thing, or how are we gonna set the difference?
Okay. I think when you can't see across the wine, I think I can see something through the wine. So I'll go either deep or medium plus intensity. So it's where I am here. And then, you know, for me, medium plus intensity of aromas, amazing. And what do I get from the wine? I get some cherish, some kirsch, a little bit of bubble gum, and then goes into these blackberries, these sort of black currants. But this youthfulness is what stands out from the wine. So I do get a little bit of herbs, but not much. It's more on a fruit, sort of easy fruit that I get on the nose, which leads me to carbonic maceration straight away.
Thiago.
Yeah.
Just to leave a note about the mouth of this wine, I feel some tannins. I do think that this wine has a little bit of tannins, and maybe it's a grape that has a lot of tannins, and maybe the carbonic maceration softened the wine.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's answer that at the end of the conclusion. So yeah, so for me, it's a youthful wine, at least on the nose, a little bit of dry herbs, and it's fine. A little bit of red and black fruit on the aromas. So if it was 100% red aromas, it's more in line with Beaujolais sort of style. And Beaujolais would mean a grape variety that has naturally red aromas, red fruit aromas, like a Merlot, like Cinsault and Carignan, like Pinot Noir, like However, I do get a little bit of black aromas, like Syrah, like a Mourvèdre, like other black grape varieties that have black fruit aromas. So it could be a blend, or it could be a blend, or it could be a grape variety that has mainly black fruit aromas. Gabriel?
No, you mentioned Syrah, but we don't.
We are not tasting Syrah. But
no pepper, no smoke.
But usually when you do carbonic maceration, the peppery aromas usually they go away. You don't. The carbonic maceration, they usually make all wines smells like the same, but it could be either on the red side or either on the black side of fruit. But this candy fruit, usually the bubblegummy becomes very evident on the aromas, but it could be black or red fruit aromas. For me, the wine is dry, is medium body, is 13% alcohol, so medium alcohol. Yeah, it's a medium, but like a soft tannins. So medium concentration of tannins, but on a soft way. Medium plus acidity. Hey, it's a wine that has naturally high acidity, so I'm on medium plus. I think it has a medium concentration. It's kind of short in a way. It doesn't last much longer. It's not that complex, like a one-dimensional finish of the regarding flavors. Only one or two flavors. It's not as broad as I get on the nose. And it has this sort of a bitter finish to the very end. So it's quite bitter at the end. And we are in South America. What are the grape varieties? So imagine that you need to find out what's the grape variety from this wine, knowing that this is it's not a wine that should have an evident grape variety character, because the carbonic maceration usually overpowers the identity of the note or the identity of the grape. So that's quite kind of difficult. And now you need to go in order for you to identify the grape variety, you need to think what sort of grape variety are usually used in relation to this style of wine, in relation to the carbonic maceration. So what's the personality of the grape variety initially, and why you'd use carbonic maceration, and what would be the end result? You know what I mean? So what sort of style of grape variety you should have at the very beginning? How would it be? Because you know the end result. I know we all know they are healthy. Yeah, it's a healthy grape variety, because if you had any gray rot or anything, they wouldn't use it because they need a whole bunch. That's one of the principles. Okay. So how is the color? How deep is the color, Cecilia?
The first one?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's medium. Well, okay, it's a little tiny bit left. You said it's deep. I think it's medium plus.
Fine. Okay. So if it's medium plus to deep, it's definitely not Pais, definitely not Pinot Noir, right? Definitely not Gamay, because the depth of the color is related to the thickness of the skin, right? So we are talking about a grape that has a thick skin. Does it make sense? That has a lot of anthocyanins, that has a lot of aromas and flavors. Am I correct? So start thinking, what are the grape varieties in South America that they naturally has a thick skin?
Cabernet Sauvignon, Tannat, Syrah.
Okay.
Cabernet Franc.
So
Pais, I don't know, but it could be even Pais.
It could be.
I don't know much about it.
But usually Pais they produces a much lighter colored wine. Okay.
Yes.
If I could say something,
But I can
think
read
Carignan
so
from south of Chile.
Yeah, Carignan could be one way, because the reason why you're making a wine using carbonic maceration is because you wanted to reduce tannin and you wanted to add aromas and flavors, right? To a wine, to a grape variety that doesn't have much. So it's not the best flavor, it's not the best grape variety. So, and he has black aromas.
Does the carbonic maceration have any influence on the herbaceous aromas?
Usually, the carbonic maceration usually reduce all the greenness, the pepperiness, the pyrazine, and usually brings up all the fruity aromas. Usually, and mainly this sort of a bubblegum candy aromas.
Could be a Carmenere then.
It could be a Carmenere, yeah. You know, high acidity, high tannins, and black fruit.
How about Bonarda? How is the grape?
Yeah, well, usually Bonarda makes wines that has like a black fruit aromas, but Bonarda doesn't have high acidity. Usually it's like a mellow, like a medium, sort of a medium plus. It's more round and soft style of wine that Bonarda produces. And here we do know that although the tannins are soft, they're medium, so they're there. So it's a grape variety that naturally has high amount of tannins, right? So high acidity, high amount of tannins, and black fruit. So let's funnel. What the grape varieties that has in South America, traditional grape varieties that has high acidity, high tannins, and black fruit.
Cabernet Sauvignon.
Varieties from Bordeaux.
Okay, let's think broad. Chile, Argentina, and Uruguay.
Cabernet Sauvignon, Malbec, Tannat.
Yeah, so Tannat is one of them. Does it make sense? So why would you get a Tannat from Uruguay and make a carbonic maceration to it?
To be commercial, to get the fruit and
To get
mass
popular.
scale.
Make it easy drinking. To make it easy drink, inexpensive wine.
For the roundness.
Okay, so but think, if you can make a top quality wine, would you make a carbonic maceration?
No.
So it's very important for you to get inside of the sales team and the winemaker head. So you need to get inside of the head of the sales team, the commercial team, and the winemaker. So if he can make an amazing wine, aged for 36 months and sell it for $100, he would do that. He would never make carbonic maceration. He wants to make money. He needs to pay his bills. So the reason behind is, one, either he needs an entry-level wine, either he needs to make money very quickly, either he doesn't have the grape, you know, or that could be the first vintage of those wines. So maybe he just craft Tannat into old vines, or vines from either grape variety that wasn't doing well. Those are the first or the second or the third year of a new vine. He wants to do something out of the grapes. That's one way. Carbonic maceration is one way of trying to make a wine drinkable, right? So whoever is making carbonic maceration out of a wine means that he doesn't have the best grapes, and he is trying to make something drinkable out of not the best grapes. Okay. And that's the best way for you to sell an entry-level wine, because it's very easy, very fruit forward, easy drinking, easy to impress. And Tannat could be one of them, because we are in South America.
And I think the case for Tannat, it's that you maintain the characteristics of the country. It's the grape that represents the country. So you have an entry level, easy drinking, fruit forward wine. It's good.
It's carbonic maceration, a winemaking technique widely used in Uruguay.
No.
Can that be seen as a creative and innovation to Uruguay?
Yeah.
Can that be seen that way?
Yeah.
So you could argue that, that could be seen as creative and innovative to a grape variety that is not common to that style.
Thiago,
does it mean that? Does it make sense?
When I was in Uruguay, I was at Pisorno, and they had a Tannat made with carbonic maceration. It's the only one in Uruguay, and I visited a lot of wineries there.
And it's a shitty wine.
I think as a public, it's a simple wine. they have a lot of great things there,
Mm-hmm.
but they have this entry level, and I think, wow, this is nice. Carbonic maceration with Tannat, it's different.
So yeah, it could be creative, it could be innovative, it could be just a new style being born. But whoever is making wine out of carbonic maceration, it means that they either don't have the grapes to make an amazing, incredible wine, or they either need cash and need to release the wine straight to the consumer. So carbonic maceration does that. Remember, whenever you do carbonic maceration, you extract color and you extract fruit. You do extract acidity. The tannins are usually extracted in a lower level. If we have that many tannins, like a medium, as we mentioned, it means that originally the grape had that amount of tannins, right? So if we are not in Tannat, where else would we be? Cabernet Sauvignon could be one of them. Who else? What's the other options?
Maybe even Tempranillo.
Even Tempranillo, yeah. Okay.
But Tempranillo,
In Spain,
Tempranillo has more red side of fruits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
more red.
So yeah, so those are the sort of things that we need to consider. Okay. We are not going to talk about this wine right now. Shall we taste? Would you like to uncover the wine, or would you like to move on to the next wine?
Let's uncover it.
Let's uncover, yeah.
Okay, let's uncover the wine. Right, so wine number 5, Pisorno 13.5, carbonic maceration from Tannat, Canelones. That's the wine.
Pisorno, very good wine.
Very good producer. I mean, they do good stuff.
For the style, I think it's a very good wine.
It's a wine that unfortunately cost about 100 reais at Grand Cru. But I think it could easily be sold for like a 79 reais if another importer was working with it.
Yeah.
Or even less. Come on.
Or even less, yes. Or even less.
In
I think
Uruguay,
when
it's around
I was in
45
Uruguay,
reais.
I bought for 50 reais or 45.
Yeah.
Yes, because you can tell the story and they tell the story, okay, but when you taste, come on.
It's a simple wine. So
simple wine.
I think a very good thing about the tasting of this wine that we came across, I came across, is that you guys were able to pick it up carbonic maceration. That's an important call. And the other very important call was realizing the quality. And again, if you are talking about carbonic maceration and you say that's an outstanding quality, that is something wrong on your logical way of thinking. You need to associate one thing to the other. And
but we can argue for a very good wine in this case.
Oh, you could say, for
the style,
carbonic maceration style of wine, this is a very good example. So Go On Into is a very good example, benchmark, because it has the bubble gum, it has the kirsch, it has sort of a black fruit, which is, yeah, if you want to taste some wine, that has the character of the grape variety and so on. So it's important for you to wrap it up, your answer. Okay. Your answer should go along with your tasting note. And if you're saying, this is a very tannic wine, and then you say it was carbonic maceration and your tannins are like a high or medium plus, something is missing here. You know what I mean? So your tasting note should in some ways reflect the answer for how this wine was made and so on and so on. If you believe it's carbonic maceration, you should review your tasting notes.
In my notes, I had written that I thought it was medium dry because I felt some sweetness, but I didn't know if it was from sugar or alcohol because I also felt warm. And now I can see it's 13.5% alcohol, so it's high alcohol and it's dry. So the sweetness comes from the alcohol. I don't know, or just from the red fruits and
Yeah.
I don't know.
But the alcohol doesn't appear very much because of the acidity. I think it's high acidity wine.
Yeah, I think, look.
I had the same impression as Rosana. I found it high alcohol from the start because I felt this warmth.
I had the alcohol as 13%. I didn't taste it 13.5. And usually my impression from carbonic maceration wines, it does has this sort of this impression of dryness because of the generosity of the fruit on the mid palate, especially when the wine has a little bit, it's more given. So if you have a very basic Beaujolais, very basic, very cheap, made on carbonic maceration, it has like a 3 or 4 aromas, but it doesn't have much flavor, and it's very, 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 very short. Before you can even finish, the wine is very bitter. And I think that over here, the wine has this sort of generosity of the fruit, not just aromas, but the fruit on a palate. We all sort of agree on a medium concentration. I think that the finish is quite short to medium minus, but hey, it does deliver quite a lot on the palate. We talk about texture, we talk about tannins, and I agree. I think it's medium plus to high acidity. I'm not going to argue, oh, it's high or medium plus, but I think we are on the same sort of conclusion here. If you thought that the acidity was medium, there is something wrong on you. You need to calibrate your palate. But for the examiners, they would probably give you a point for medium plus or high. You know, you do get your points here. But if you go for like a complex wine, long finish, and so on, then you're totally wrong. Okay? And it's important to understand, you know, although it's a simple wine entry level, you can argue and say, you know, this is a very good example of a carbonic maceration wine because of the broadening of bubblegummy and aromas, the roundness and the softness that the carbonic maceration adds to the wine, also the concentration of the fruit and so on and so on. So it's important for you to, from this wine, to structure an argument towards quality. And once you have this sort of a phrase, once you have that structure on arguing for the quality or the style of the wine, you just simply twist and adapt to any other style of wine because you already know the structure. So once you have this structure written for carbonic maceration, for a 35 months aged in French barrels, for a wine that was, for a mature wine, for like a 20 years old maturing bottle, and so on, it's easier for you to apply for any other wine. Make sense?
But Thiago, I have another question. For the carbonic maceration, maybe this question is for Eloise. Should you harvest the grapes a little earlier?
I don't do carbonic maceration at all. I've never had an experience with it.
I don't think it's about harvesting earlier. I think it's about harvesting healthy grapes. So when you think in Beaujolais, and you also think of Rhone, northern southern Rhone, those grapes are usually planted on the outskirts of the region, more on a plateau as opposed to the hills, which usually has a much better exposition and so on and so on. So those are grapes that have reached the maximum concentration of sugars and bricks, but even though they're still lower. So I don't think that they harvest earlier, but they tend to harvest on the maximum possibility, on the optimum ripeness, even though those are not the best areas. And also they try to harvest before any possible rain. So if they know that it will be raining next week or tomorrow, they probably harvesting today. Also, usually carbonic maceration are used for grapes that are on a high production. So if you have high production, high yielding, they usually tend to use carbonic maceration. Or if you have young vines, carbonic maceration are usually applied. So if Eloise had young vines, 5 years old, carbonic maceration is one way of making a drinkable wine out of it. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's move on to our second wine, and I'll be tasting the second wine with you. So who would you like to share your thoughts on this wine?
Can I start, Thiago?
Yeah.
For me, it's a deep ruby with some purple. I think it's a young, youthful wine, medium plus intensity of aromas, fruit forward. But I do get there are a lot of red fruit, strawberries, raspberries, red cherries. But I do get something like a little tweak here. Maybe more like a biodynamics, natural wine, something like this. Like they said that the typical aromas of natural or biodynamics. I forgot this one. Like the horse or something like this.
Yeah.
Sweat or something. It's a little bit strange here. Some bitterness on the nose.
Do you mean Brettanomyces?
It's something like Brett, yeah.
Like
Just
farmyard, barnyard.
But it's a notes of Brett. It's soft. It's not overwhelming the wine. It's a Brett in a good way for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fruit forward wine, fruit driven. There's a lot of sweetness on the nose.
Okay.
There's a lot of floral notes. The violets are here. Some lavender, I think, notes for me. It's a young wine. It's just for the nose. For me, it's just this.
Thank you. Does anybody else would like to share your thoughts on the wine? Deja, Thiago, just.
Can I just say something? It's amazing because for me, the nose intensity was like medium minus. For him, it was medium plus.
Mm-hmm.
And I get absolutely no, I saw from the cork that it's from the Michelini brothers. So it's probably not from Spain. So it's probably from Argentina. But anyway, and I don't feel this much of Brett or this much of anything that would say, the yucky stuff from natural wine. I really don't get it on the nose or, okay, we're not on the palate yet, but anyway. And so it's very interesting because It's one thing from my medium to medium plus, but medium plus to medium minus, it's a big gap.
Maybe it's because my glass it's here for almost 40 minutes.
Yeah, could be.
I don't know.
Could be.
I had a completely different impression from the wine. Completely different.
So share your impressions with us.
A medium intensity. Primary aromas like thyme, eucalyptus, black pepper, and black fruits like blackberry and black cherry. And tertiary aromas like cedar, smoke, subois, I don't remember how to say it in English, and some, I didn't feel exactly flowers, but acacia, not acacia flowers, acacia leaves. It does have a different tasting. So I think it is a wine that spent a lot of time in wood, in oak barrels. I think it went through Malo also, because
what sort of quality of oak? Brand new, American, French? What would you say?
I haven't thought about it, but now that you mention, I think it's more of an European oak because of this cedar. I don't feel that much vanilla or coconut. It is it's somewhat spicy. So I wouldn't know, could be French oak or maybe some other European oak, but I would think it was European oak.
Okay. How about palate? How do you see the wine?
Thiago, just one doubt.
Sure.
Before you go further. I see, I hear Eloise saying about the wood notes. Maybe I'm feeling too much fruit is because the wood's not new one. It's maybe second use or third use of oak.
Yeah, that could be.
Because for me, it's really clear that it's a young wine. I didn't feel any tertiary aromas at all.
Okay. What else would you like to share your views toward regarding the palate of the wine? Who hasn't mentioned anything about Jude? Would you like to participate?
Yep. A palate?
Yeah, well, we can do the full tasting note if you don't mind.
Okay. I do agree with Eloise about the wood. I feel the same aromas and the herbal side. I couldn't feel black pepper, but mint and dill I describe here in my notes. And for the palate, for me it's a dry wine, medium plus acidity, medium plus tannin, ripe tannins, and medium alcohol, and medium plus body and medium plus intensity, and medium plus finish also.
Yeah. Right, and by reading what you're saying, by listening to what you're saying, what sort of grape variety has this character? Red fruit.
Initially,
red fruit, high acidity, medium plus tannins, soft, medium plus tannins, moderated medium alcohol. Okay.
Carmener.
I had black fruit, not red fruit. So
okay.
I felt both initially.
I felt both of them, red fruit and black fruit, and also a lot of cinnamon that was not mentioned, but I can feel cinnamon in my mouth more than cedar.
this make me feel think about a blend maybe.
Yeah.
But only one variety. I pick Cabernet Franc or Cabernet Sauvignon.
Maybe Merlot also. I don't know.
Oh.
Would you say 100% Merlot, or would you say a blend with Merlot?
Maybe both of them. It can be 100%.
I would say a blend of Merlot.
Yeah, because the acidity is medium plus acidity.
Exactly. So Merlot usually doesn't have this sort of a high acidity, and also the tannins. So this is not a tannin, a characteristic of Merlot. So if Merlot was adding to this blend, what would Merlot add to the characteristics of the blend?
Softness, roundness,
exactly.
some balance.
Exactly. So mainly the body of the wine, and I don't get Merlot to the body of the wine.
I think it could be a Cabernet Sauvignon and Carmenère.
With regards to the quality
Malbec,
of this wine,
Malbec with Cabernet, maybe.
That's a good call, Malbec. Why did you say Malbec? Why did you consider Malbec here?
Acidity, red fruit,
tannin,
good tannins,
softness of the tannins. Usually, Malbec usually has this sort of punch in tannins, and then it goes very, very, very soft. And usually, Cabernet Sauvignon goes very. Because you have this punch of Cabernet Sauvignon, and then it goes on the same level all the way to the end. It never changes. But the tannins of Malbec, they're usually very present, and then they become very soft. You go like, and then it becomes very soft straight away. So, okay, Malbec could be one of them. What else from this wine tell us Malbec?
The color. It's
color, okay.
Purple.
Yeah, the purpleness of the wine could be an indication. Is there any other grape variety that usually has a sort of a purpleness to it?
Tannat.
Tannat could be one of them. What else? Anchelota could be another one.
Carmenère.
Carmenère usually is not that purple. It's usually more on the red side, the ruby side. But Malbec, it's one of the grape varieties that usually has this sort of purpleness, but it's not that purple. I mean, I do get this sort of a bluish, but I don't see very, very purple to it. But hey, it's not just the color. It's not because of the color. You can't just say see the color and say, oh, because of the color is there for Malbec. So you need to draw conclusions here in order to reach your grape variety. So the previous wine, we were able to draw a conclusion towards grape variety because of some of characteristics: black fruit, high acidity, high tannins, and so on and so on. Over here, we need to be a little bit more specific. Why do we think it is Malbec or any other? Also,
did anybody feel any herbaceous?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
because I did, and it's very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
I think this characteristic is about the fermentation. I think that's a whole bunch fermentation and open vessel fermentation. That's the aromas that Bruno was saying. I'm not getting to identify the aromas. These aromas of little herbs, a little herbal notes. I think is from the vinification process. Whole bunch and open vessel fermentation.
It could be.
That's why.
It could be a blend too, or both.
It could be a blend. We could have a little bit of other.
There are some black and red fruits that indicate that there is not single variety, but a blend of red fruits.
Maybe could it have some Syrah on it?
Why?
Because I felt these spicy notes mostly, like black pepper, some of these dried herbs, and so I thought about Syrah. This kind of greenness, freshness.
Oh, I think whole bunch can add that, but usually also adds.
Can we talk a little bit about this whole bunch fermentation process?
It's common in some regions for winemakers to de-steam the grapes and have a little bit of a whole bunch. So get a whole bunch, add that. Once you do that, all the stems, obviously with the beginning of the fermentation and the wine moves and so on, those bunches, the grapes, they usually fell apart, and then you usually have these stems. The stems to the cap adds a little bit of creaminess or spiciness that contributes to a little bit of grippiness to the tannins, which could also add some herbaceous notes to the feel, to the mouthfeel, and just freshness. So it adds some freshness to the palate itself. So it's common for Pinot Noir, whole bunch. It's common for Gamay. It's common for light grape varieties. Okay. By adding whole bunch, also contributes to the cap. So once you're doing pushing down to break the cap into the wine, the wine has an easier flow through the cap as the stems allow some room for the liquid, the wine to go through the cap. So it's a good thing having a little bit of the stems. You just need to be very careful not to have green grapes, green bunches, because the greener it is, the more green texture and green tannins and stalky tannins you will end up to the wine. So it's common some producers to add like a 10% of the bunches, whole bunch. So 10% of all the grapes that goes in is like a whole bunch. So it's quite common, 5 to 10%.
But because of, at least for me, because of the intensity of the herbaceous aromas, do you think they use more than 10%? 100%.
Okay, so how? What are the other ways of getting herbaceousness to the wine?
Grape variety.
Grape variety. Well done. What else?
Early harvest.
Early harvest. Yeah. How can you grow a grape that can have natural high acidity, balance between sugar and flavor, and it still keeps some herbaceousness to it?
Cool climate, but with a good sun exposure.
Yeah. Or if you are in a new world, like Chile and Argentina and Uruguay, where would you go? Yeah. So it's important. If you have a question, you know the wines are coming from South America, and you can have this sort of a lightness and greenness, and I would dare to say, it's coming from high altitude. Or either if you don't have a wine that has high alcohol, the alcohol is moderated, you could say proximity to the ocean, because the ocean current, the ocean influence moderated the alcohol as well as. So you have to use everything that you have into the glass to say, because of the high acidity, because we have this herbal and savory notes, I think it's, and also the floral aromas, I think we are coming from a sort of high altitude, like at least 1,000 meters above sea level. So use everything that you have learned from the regions and link that from the glass to the answer that the examiner is asking you. Where is it coming from? What's the quality level? If you know, Cecilia, that is coming from high altitude, would you say this is a low quality level? This is an entry level? Definitely not. So if it's not coming from, if you think that it is Malbec, and if you think that you have a fresh Malbec, a new style Malbec, it's not very sweet, you have a broadness of aromas and flavors, would you say this is a good quality, or would you say it is a very good quality? You know what I mean? So these are the sort of the kind of things that you need to consider once you're arguing about what's the grape variety and what's the quality. Does anybody else would like to comment on this wine before I share my tasting notes? Right.
Thiago, can I ask something? Even Eloise is always my benchmark. So she felt some oak in this. I don't get any oak.
Yeah.
Maybe if I search a lot, I can find a little tiny hint of vanilla, but I don't really feel it. I'm just trying to feel it.
No.
I don't get oak in this.
Yeah, I'm gonna share with you in a few minutes what I think about this wine.
I'm in the opposite side. I think there's a lot of oak.
Do you really think? But what sort of oak do you get? Is it brand new French or brand new American or a second fill, third fill? How do you see it?
Yeah, I think French, maybe in second use, but I think it's like charred wood.
Heavy charred?
Yeah, heavy charred wood. Okay. Maybe.
No.
I had we last Monday we had Women's Day. We had a live with Susanna Balbo for the project that we have, like a non-for-profit project. 15 women that they're part of our social non-for-profit program, and Susanna Balbo was mentioning about the new barrels that she's using. That these are not charred barrels. They are sealed internally with hot air as opposed to fire, which does add some toastiness to the wine, but in a very light way, and it still seals the wood. So that was very, very interesting what she was saying about that, the new way that she's sealing internally the wood and so on and so on. Let me share my thoughts. I would go for a deep color, and I understand that some of you may say, oh, it's medium color, but I would rather go on a deep side, and I would say medium to medium plus intensity of aromas. I think is medium. Then I do get this sort of wild berries like plums, a little bit of licorice, a little bit of black plums, as well as raspberries, wild raspberries, a little bit of jam, a little bit of red fruit concentration, like when you do a puree of red fruit, like you're trying to make a drink, so you do a puree of red fruit, as opposed to very jammy. It's not very jammy, but like a puree. If you have a baby, if you have a young children at home, so you know what I'm talking about. And I have a comment of MOX, which is an abbreviation for micro oxygenation. So when you have a wine that has like a 5 years old in a bottle, it does have some sort of a development, but not tertiary aromas yet. So when you have a very concentrated wine, you see that the wine is developing, and it's not very young and very fresh like the first wine, but it's not very tertiary. So I do get this sort of a bottle development, but not tertiary yet. And I don't think this is like 2015, 2017 vintage. But I think it had this sort of a micro oxygenation that allows the wine to develop, to lose these very estery aromas and concentrate more on a puree and more on a red plums and wild berries, and you know what I mean. So I think this wine has seen oak because of this micro oxygenation. I don't think that this microoxygenation comes from bottle aging. I think it comes from the oak, but I don't see new oak here. I see some like 600 liters oak or 1,000 liters oak, which is quite common right nowadays. They are all moving towards this sort of 600 liters, 1,000 liters, 2,000 liters oak size, which allows the wine to have a little bit of microoxygenation, not having this toastiness. Also, a lot of producers like a De Martino, for example, they're using like a 10 years old French barrels only to allow microoxygenation. Okay, so it's becoming more popular. So I don't get the oak itself, the oak aromas itself in the nose, but I get this sort of a development on the aromas. And the puree is one of the reasons why I believe it has this sort of a microoxygenation. So I do get a little bit of savoriness and a little bit of herbal to the wine. If I was to guess a vintage, I would say like 2018, 2019 vintage. So I think it's a new wine, young wine, but not new. The previous wine was new. This wine is sort of young. It hasn't seen much of a bottle development. It has seen more of a microoxygenation from the oak. That's what the aromas is telling me. The nose is telling me. When I taste the wine, I think it's dry, medium plus body, and I would say medium alcohol, 13.5% alcohol. I think it's high acidity, medium plus tannins, very soft, very smoothie, soft texture, ripe. I think it has medium concentration of flavors and a medium finish or medium plus or medium minus finish. Okay. And as opposed to many New World wines, it doesn't finish very on a sweet side. It's not very sweet. It's more on a herbal and dry, savory side. It finishes more on this side. If you go back to the first wine, it finished on a bitter side because they were extracting from the skin and so on. And I think here finishes more on herbal and savory side as opposed to the sweetness, which is very atypical from the New World. You know, usually Chilean, Argentinian wines, they finish more on the sweet side. And here is very savory and very herbal, which makes me think how this wine was made. What's the purpose? What was going through the winemaking or the winemaker itself? We know it's coming from South America. And now we need to think how this wine was made. So through the winemaking process, I'm thinking he probably used large oak vats, like 600 liters, 1,000 liters, maybe a little bit of concrete. Okay. Maybe a little bit of stems, you know, whole bench, because of the aromas, because of this sort of a grippiness, also because of this sort of herbaceous and savoriness of the wine. I think it's a blend of concrete eggs and large oak casks. I do get a little bit of toastiness to the finish, but at the same time, I feel just sort of a herbaceous and savoriness. If I was to consider the grape variety, I would think a red grape variety that has high acidity and has high tannins. Where are we here? No Cabernet Sauvignon, no Tannat, right? Definitely no Carmenère, because we don't get this sort of a peppery and bay leaf that we get from Carmenère. So where are we? High tannins, medium plus tannins and high acidity, definitely not No, mellow.
Cabernet Franc.
Cabernet
From the
Franc,
quality of the
Cabernet Franc could be
tannins.
one of them.
and because it's Argentina, so they have a
Yeah,
lot of them.
yeah, but look, we have a moderated alcohol and medium plus body.
I think it's a
Franc
blend
usually,
anyway, so I
Yeah,
think it's a blend.
okay, Cabernet Franc usually doesn't have a medium plus body. So Malbec could be a very good element of the blend. So if there is another grape variety, it could be mellow. It could be Cabernet Franc because of the lifted aromas. That could be another reason. But does it taste like a Chilean wines? Why not? Why you should not consider mellow Chile here?
Because it's missing that eucalyptus mint style that we can find in the Chilean wines.
Good argument. What else?
Also the pyrazine that you usually see on Cabernet and Carmenère.
Okay, read the wine. What else? Taste the wine again. What else? What else is definitely not Chile?
I think it's missing the sweetness.
Hey, that's a very good call. It finishes on a herbal and savory side. Yes, I agree, Hosanna. What else?
The body is also not that big that you see in a lot of Chilean wines.
Yes, and what else?
I don't know.
You're salivating. And quite a lot. The wine is very juicy. That's definitely not in line with Chilean wines. Does it make sense? So it does have some moderation. It does have some climatic influence of this wine, right? And definitely, this is not the sort of wine that is made on high production, mass production, and definitely not on a valley floor. It's definitely high altitude, which justify high acidity, justify ripeness, and the medium plus tannins is related to the grape variety. Makes sense?
Thiago, why can't it be, again, I'm not very familiar with Chilean wines, but why couldn't it be from a better quality producer of a Chilean wine, like a medium?
We get all the top producers that we get on high altitude. Think of Montes, think of, producers that they are planted, they are cultivated on a high altitude. They usually have higher alcohol. They usually have this sort of sweetness to the palate. They usually make wines that are very concentrated because they can. Over here, I think it has this sort of European style to this wine. It finish on a savory side, it finish on a herbal side. It has a beauty to this wine. You know what I mean? It has balance.
Yes, I would say that from Chile, you don't find this balance. Usually it's either jammy or you don't have high acidity and good fruit ripeness.
Even in the expensive ones?
What I was
Even
going
the
to
more
say,
expensive ones?
Sorry?
I was gonna point the method. I don't think it's made from like concrete eggs or anything, new or fashionable. I think it's a classical winemaking. It has such an elegance.
Yeah.
And I think this micro-oxygenation, we wouldn't have that much micro-oxygenation. I don't know if that's makes any sense in big vats. I think the ratio of wood and wine, I think they use like or 225 normal barrels, small barrels, or bigger barrels, as you said. They're using a lot of 600 liters now. But I think it's a classical winemaking.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very traditional winemaking in a way, because it tastes very European. It's very elegant because it has balance between acidity, fruit concentration, tannin polishment. It's quite polished. But the micro-oxygenation depends how long the wine is matured in oak. So if it was mature for 35...
Yes, but you said it is 2018, and I agree, it's either 18 or 19. So it has been in oak for what? 2 years, 1 year, 1 year and a half?
Yeah, I think it's more of 18 or 17 as opposed to 19. I wouldn't guess 19. I would go for 18 or 17.
Thiago.
I could be wrong. So if it was aged for like a 24 months in old oak, so this micro-oxygenation would help to bottle a wine that has more of this softness and elegance and so on and so on.
Yes, for sure.
So that's one thing. Going back to, and Bruno, I'll give you a chance to interact with us. But going back to Hosanna, I think that Hosanna usually they makes this sort of very robust, very muscular wine in Chile, concentrated wines, which we don't find here. For me, this wine is kind of European style, made in South Africa, made in South America. And also, Cecilia, when I go into the Chilean top quality wines, they usually try to make a wine that can age very well. And still, they try to make a wine that has less tannins, but it's still a lot of concentration and that can age very well. And over here, I don't see a wine that was made for aging. I think they try to make a wine that has very good concentration, very harmonious, able to drink it now, to enjoy now. They didn't try to produce a wine for aging. They try to produce a wine drinking at best now. It can keep in bottle for a few more years, but they weren't trying to make a wine that needs time in aging. Wine can either be approachable now or approachable in 5-10 years time. And I think this wine is approachable now. Does it make sense, Cecilia? Is Cecilia here?
Cecilia?
I'm here.
Oh, yeah, you're here. Okay. Does it make sense, my comment?
Total sense. Total sense. And the fact is, again, I saw the cork. Yeah. These guys really know how to do the thing. And we do know that they're biodynamic. Do you get anything in here? Does anyone get anything but Bruno? I mean, you know, that funky, weird little stuff that they get sometimes in these biodynamic stuff, winemakers.
I get purity. Yeah. For me, it's a very pure, clean, classic European.
And elegant. I think it's very elegant.
Yeah.
Very
Thiago,
elegant.
I want to add some notes up on this wine. I get when you say there's some purity in some old worldness to the wine, but I think that this kind of fruit, it's not old world, but I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. What I was surprised was the oak aromas, maybe the flavors,
beauty,
because I didn't get it, but I was seeing the some notes about the wine, and some grapes are co-fermented in cemento,
Concrete.
cemento tanks, concrete tanks, and 30% are whole bunch.
So you're talking about the
it's
wine. Shall we review the wine, Bruno?
Yes. That's why I thought that the wine was a little different, and it's organic and a low intervention in the process.
Yeah.
So it's very different, and they use a lot of different oak barrels for eight months. So, and
there we
it's
are.
a blend.
We are talking.
So very different blend also.
So there you go. We are talking about Balsa de Piedra, Vino de Vila. So in their point of view, it's a sort of a village wine from Michelini. So it's Tupungato.
Very
so
good.
High altitude. Okay. This is a blend wine from 2019, and in my point of view was at least 18 sort of thing, because of this softness and this integration of oak aromas and so on and so on. They say Balsa de Piedra, so they probably means concrete fermentation or concrete vat storage. So Tupungato, 1,100 meters above sea level, and so on. So if anyone can search it online, great. So it says Mendoza, Argentina.
I'm seeing this. So they use concrete eggs, amphors, some barriques, some like big oak vats to also, and in some cases they use carbonic maceration.
What the grape varieties
they
here?
do a lot of wine making techniques. They don't say in this about the producer. They don't say a lot of things about this particular wine, but they say about all the wines that the Michelin make. So it's a very different wine.
I couldn't find who imports it.
So let me get into the importers website. They might be able to give us some.
These guys are amazing. The older one is the winemaker from Zorzal, and they have Superuco. I don't know if everyone tried the Superuco wines. They have some really good stuff. They really know what they're doing. They have the younger ones they're a big family, and they're amazing. How much is this? Wait.
They have the Michelini brothers, all those natural wine makers too.
Yeah, but the thing, it's true. But you don't get that yucky stuff. It's one of the good ones. I mean, they really know what they're doing. It's a beautiful wine. 159 reais. That's cheap.
So they're saying Malbec.
It's a very good one.
So Malbec for me, I relate it to high tannings. Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc means, you know, the punchiness on the nose, the aromatics. Cabernet Sauvignon, the tannings, The mellow, okay, so the red fruit and the puree and the body. Semillon.
And they have Semillon.
So Semillon can contribute to the pigmentation and the color and so on. And it says 8 months on barriques of 225 plus 800 liters, as well as and different French oak and of different ages, 13.2 alcohol level. So medium. So it's an organic wine. So basically, it's an amazing wine. It's a blended wine, and it's quite common for Argentina to produce blended wine. Okay. Not just 100% Malbec, not just 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. Also, I think it does have this sort of a typicity of Argentinian wines. Argentinian wines usually has this either very simple easy drinking, fruit-driven sweetness of the wines, high alcohol, and a lot of tannins, or either they have this sort of elegance coming from altitude. So think on the great wines like Adriana Vineyards or Alto Las Hormigas, so on, so on. They usually have this sort of floral and high altitude and moderated alcohol as well as.
Yeah, this one has 12.5. That's amazing.
12.5, well, on a label.
On the label.
On the label, yeah. Well, the importer's website, it says 13.2. So again.
Okay.
Anyway, it's
Add
medium
both
alcohol.
and divide by 2.
So it's medium alcohol. So think, why is the Argentinian and not Chilean wine? And why this is definitely not Uruguayan wine? I mean, it doesn't have the tannin. It doesn't have the structure of tannin at all. Also, I think it doesn't have this sort of sweetness and pepperness and the pyrazine that we get from Chilean wines. I think it has this sort of altitude that benefits from cooler nights and warmer days, which therefore can contribute to have this sort of a high acidity and moderated alcohol. Okay, the blend is an element that plays a huge part to this wine, and how every single part of this wine was made, as well as. So it says carbonic fermentation, aged in oak, in different size of oak, also a little bit of eggs, concrete eggs, and so on. So all of these elements plays a part when you are putting together or assembling a wine like this. If you were to say quality-wise, where would you be?
Very good wine.
Very good. Very good. Very good quality wine. How much you do price-wise? $15, like 15 pounds, $18, $20 sort of thing. That's the bracket range where you should be. Very good. You could argue outstanding, but I would say very good quality wine. But you see, this is the sort of wine that speaks very with a low voice. The oak doesn't stand out. Proximity to the sea, which isn't the case, doesn't stand out. There is nothing that really stands out. We were able to pick up a little bit of toastiness of the wine, toastiness on the back palate, on the finish of the wine. But there is a lot of winemaking involved here. And we should be able to start to understand how to perceive those winemaking approached to the wine. So it seems to be very low intervention, but at the end of the day, it's not very low intervention. They have aged the wine in different size of oak and so on and so on, and put it together. And they have used different grapes to assemble a wine like this. So there's a lot of techniques involved here. And that's the tricky, how to recognize that to the wine. The first thing is, if you are unable to perceive one winemaking technique, that means that there is a lot of winemaking technique. If the wine speaks in a very smooth way, low voice, it means that it has a lot of techniques allowed to involved to it. So the things that sounds very simple means they're not very simple. They're very technical. Does it make sense? Whoever tells you, oh, this is a very easy and simple way of making, they're probably hiding something from you. Make sense? No?
Yes.
Yeah. So I hope you have enjoyed both of the wines, or at least the last wine of this box. There is a lot of unanswered question, which is related to how this wine was made and how can I perceive it to the palate. I think that it's quite tricky, but the more that you taste and the more that you pay attention to the integration of the elements, the role of oxygen to this wine, how we are unable to perceive one variety over another, those are the things that we need to pay attention to be able to understand that this is a blended wine. This is a wine that has been aged in several different sizes of barriques of different ages, and assembling together is a technique of which Argentinians has more tradition over Chilean wines and over Uruguayan producers. Does it make sense? Traditionally, Argentinians have produced a lot more red wines, blended wines over Chilean and Uruguayan producers. Yeah. Any question related to this last wine? The Balsa de Piedra?
In the test and the tasting, is it okay if we just say that there was some micro-oxygenation and then we guess that maybe second or third or fourth used oak or concrete or whatever without being really right?
I think that if those two wines are put together, they would probably ask you about winemaking technique. So the first wine, you should definitely talk about carbonic maceration. The second wine, we should be talking about blending. We should be talking about the use of different sizes of oak, not just as a storage, but micro-oxygenation. We should be able to say, second use of oak because of the lightness of oak flavors. We should be able to say, because of the harmony of the wine, there's likely to be a blend as opposed to one single variety. Because of the red and black grape variety also leads me to a blend of varieties. So as long as you are able to use one element of your tasting note and point it to justify your conclusion, the better. I think they are trying to see if you are able to understand that this is a blended wine, as opposed to 100% Malbec or 100% Cabernet Franc or 100% Cabernet Sauvignon and so on and so on. I think we should be able to identify the harmony of the wine and point that to quality-wise. So when you think of the great Bordeaux wines, they're usually a blend. And the better the blend, the better the quality of the wine. Yeah, makes sense?
Okay. But when you make blends, you also look for, let's say, equilibrium and complexity.
Oh, yeah.
But we didn't see much complexity in this one.
That's a good point, because when we mentioned the first wine, I remember that Cecilia, she said, "Oh, this wine is not that complex." So what does complex means? So should complex means tertiary aromas, or should complex means balance, equilibrium? So if you say that this is a complex wine because it has moderated tannins in a soft way, high acidity, good length, good integration of aromas and texture, that is in a way complexity. So I think we are in a way that we are in a moment or in a level where complexity could also means integration. And I think that, it has a good texture, it has a good integration. It has a good concentration of aromas and flavors, layers of flavors. In my view, this is complexity, not necessarily only tertiary aromas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Thiago.
Guys, have a very good night, and I'll see you next Tuesday for the new box. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay,
Cheers.
bye-bye.
Enjoy your night. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.